Hi, welcome back. I hope you had a nice week. Today we are going to talk about bad translations. Bad translations can be a laughing matter for the target audience, for those who read them. However, for any business owner, it's no laughing matter, and in fact can damage their brand and of course damage the reputation of their business. And no business owner in the world wants that. One of the main sources for these so-called bad translations is definitely the hospitality industry, and more specifically restaurant menus. We all know, we all came across a bad menu somewhere around the world. We all laugh about it. It's common. However, if you are the restaurant owner, that's not to be laughed about, because it actually may be a serious issue. Let's imagine you have a restaurant. Your restaurant is in a touristic area. You have a lot of tourists around, and of course you want to bring as many customers as you possibly can, because that's how you make money, that's how your business thrives. So first thing to do, have your menu translated in a second language. Most restaurants have menus translated in English because it's considered a universal language, and it's one that most traveler usually speaks. However, it is also very common these days to have in other languages. In Europe, for example, you will find menus that are translated in English and in other languages within the European Union. It all depends, in my view, it all depends on the area. It all depends on the type of tourist that area attracts. If it attracts tourists from a particular country, it's more likely that restaurants will want their menus translated in the language of that particular type of tourist. It's a lot of factors, obviously, that may be considered when choosing which language to translate your menus. But this is not what this video is about today. This is about bad translations. So when you translate your menu, you want the menu to be translated properly. And why is that? You want your customer to enter in your restaurant, and you want your customer to talk about the great food, the great service that you may provide, the great ambience in the whole restaurant, the decor, the view that you might have from the window of your restaurant, and all this. You want your customer to be talking about all these positive aspects of your restaurant, about your brand, the product that you sell, which is the food, and your brand. This restaurant is great. It has great food. The service is amazing. The ambient is good. The decor is fantastic and has this fantastic view. You really have a good experience in this restaurant. I really recommend. This is what you would want your customer to be talk about. And today we live in the social media era where people go to a restaurant, they just take a photo of the plate. Oh, I'm at restaurant XYZ, and this is what I'm having. It's great food. Oh, the service is also great. You guys should all come here and try it because it's really good. So this is good publicity for your restaurant. This is great. This is what you want, because it's a known fact that the best publicity is a satisfied customer, and this is what you want, a satisfied customer talking about your restaurant in a positive manner, about all the positives, about your brand, about your product, which is food, and everything. However, if you have a really chunky translation and you have a really bad translation, what you may end up having is a photograph of your wrong translated menu and post it on Instagram, on Facebook, or any other social media, or multiple social media, for example, saying, "Oh, I've been to this restaurant and look what they've got. This is nice. This is funny." And instead of being the great restaurant in town, you may end up being the clown of the town, which is not what you want. And this is why a good translation on your menu, it's really important for you and for your brand, because this is what you don't want to happen. You don't want clients to be talking about your menu. You want your clients, they can talk about your menu, but they can say, "Oh, the menu in this restaurant is really good. They have this and they have that." This is how you want your customers to be talking about your menu. You don't want your customers saying that you have that you're serving boots, or you're serving something like that. This was just an example. Obviously, I'm not quoting any particular bad translation, because I honestly don't have any at the moment. So this is why you should always hire a professional translator. There's colleagues that are specialized in the culinary field. They are specialized in translation of culinary books and menus and everything regarding to food. They are experts. They will be able to help you with your menu, and they will be able to tell you exactly and translate your menu accurately, and tell you exactly which words should be chosen and how your menu should be translated in a way that your customer is going to read it, will understand it, and will be more well informed to choose which dish they want to eat, and obviously make a good review of your business, because attention to detail is a very important aspect of any business. Another type of business, or another type of industry where sometimes we see a lot of bad translations, is subtitling. Last week I asked on Updated Words Facebook page for my followers to give me a few examples of bad translations. One of my followers mentioned subtitling. She could not give me an example per se, because she said she didn't remember one at that time, but she says it's quite frequent when she watches series or movies on Netflix or any other platform. It's quite common to see things that are not translated properly. Well, subtitling is a very, very complex field of translation. A person or a translator needs to be adequately trained in subtitling to do that job properly. I'd never done it myself. However, when I was doing my course, one of my colleagues was actually working in that field, and she actually gave us a lecture on that particular field. She explained to us the specificity of that field, and the complexity of that field, the techniques that a translator needs to apply in subtitling, and how to do subtitling correctly. One of the major problems with subtitling is that languages are different, obviously, and the structure of sentences is different, and sometimes the grammar and the words used are different. For example, and obviously I'm taking the example of Portuguese and English, which is the languages that I work with and the languages that I obviously have experience with. Portuguese has a very extensive grammar, and it has a very extensive vocabulary. You have lots of articles and nouns and adjectives and all these words that come into place in a sentence. So, for example, a 5-word sentence in English may end up being a 7 or 8-word sentence in Portuguese. That's what we say, the Portuguese expands, because it uses more words. So it's easy to see that if you are a subtitler and you need to do subtitling of a certain movie or a documentary or whatever, or a show, anything that goes on TV, and you need to do that subtitling, it's a very hard challenge for you to not only pass the right message to the target audience, but also fit that message into that small space that you have to work with. It's very complex and complicated. So sometimes the translation has to be creative. All the time needs to be creative, and the translator needs to do it in a way that it does not expand the language as much, so it can still fit the little the text in that little space that he has to work with. So sometimes it's not exactly word by word, because it can never be word by word, and you may think it's a wrong translation. Sometimes there is wrong translations altogether, and that happens as well, because obviously when you don't put a professional doing the job, there's always room for error. Another issue that viewers sometimes may assume is a wrong translation, but it's not. It's the case of idioms. You know that every language has its cultural traces. We all have it. Every country has it. Even between the same language, between two countries using the same language, different variants, there will be these cultural traces, and sometimes there's the need for translation even though it's the same language. That happens with, for example, Portuguese from Portugal and Portuguese Brazilian, but that's localization, so that's another issue. One of the things is obviously the cultural traces, and sometimes what in the source language may be one sentence, and if you go and translate that sentence, for example, in Portuguese, even though the sentence may be accurately translated, it wouldn't make sense in the context of the entire show or in the documentary or whatever, in the entire text, because that particular sentence had a different meaning in the source language. It's a cultural trace. So what you have to do, you have to translate it in a way, so with a sentence that has exactly the same impact and passes exactly the same message. That happens with idioms, but sometimes with other things, puns and other things. It's very important to understand this, and sometimes you may see, if you understand both languages, you may see the actor or the presenter talking about coffee, and you may read the subtitle may say milk or tea, and you say, this is not translated properly. Well, it might be translated properly, it's just not exactly the same words as in the source text, because if that was translated word per word, or even if the sentence was just translated, it wouldn't make sense. Even though it was well translated, it wouldn't make sense in the context of the whole text. Wouldn't make sense because that sentence in the source text has a different meaning, has a cultural meaning, it's an idiom, so it needs to be translated in a different way. And that it's also another reason that some viewers might think it's not translated properly. It is, only has it's an idiom and has to be translated differently. So I decided to bring this today because I think this is a very, very important thing. If you are in the film industry, or if you have a restaurant, or if you have a business, any business, and if you need things translated, always very important to choose a professional, someone that is adequately trained to do that job, because a bad translation can damage your business. A bad translation can damage your brand. Obviously, a movie that is not translated properly, it will pass the wrong message. The people won't understand it, and they will give bad reviews to that movie because they simply didn't understand it. The message wasn't passed correctly. The same as in a restaurant. If you have bad menu that you don't understand, you may laugh about it, but then, well, you're not going to give a good review because obviously you didn't understand it. It's so confusing, and this is important to take in consideration and bear in mind that this is a main problem and this is a main aspect of your business. We live in a global world. One language is not enough. These days we need things to be translated in more languages because there's more people, there's circulation of people, there's more tourism, people travel, and the message needs to get to different audiences and in different languages. And those languages need to be accurate and need to be properly put so it gets to your audience and it gives you the results that you want. So I hope you like my video today. If you are a restaurant owner and have an experience to tell me about how difficult or easy it might have been to translate your menu, let us know by the comments below. Or if you are a subtitler or you are in the movie industry and also would like to share your experience, do the same. If you have seen bad translations out there and you would like to share it with us, please do. Subscribe, share the videos, because the more people see it, the more awareness we create about this, and maybe we can make these things better for everyone. I really hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so very much for watching and see you next week. Bye!